Pep decided to wear his hoodie. Make that statement. I'm not even going to get dressed up. I rolled out of bed in this hoodie. These are my pajamas. I don't really care. I'm still going to beat you. It's Rog with a post-FA Cup final reflections on what we all witnessed today on that green grass of Wembley Stadium. Manchester City 2, Manchester United 1. City, imperious, rolling on without really having to do too much work, having to struggle too much. 2/3 of the way on to what will be a magnificent treble. Their effort to win as many trophies as they can goad football authorities to charge them with slightly dodgy dealings. Not the blood and thunder occasion many of us had expected. It's almost as if they made the players grind out a World Cup in the middle of the season. Who would have thought? But we'll break all of this down and touch upon a Women's Champions League final of some wonder. But first, a toast. I want to raise this first Bud Light of the day to the fact that this is the first of 10 Premier Leagueless weekends in our life. And there's a lot of football to come. Make no mistake, Women's World Cup, chief amongst it all. But for those of us who live lives in which early morning weekends are filled with the sound of Rebecca Lowe and the occasional Robbie narrating us through the Terence Malick-sized cast that acts out the Premier League, we feel that absence. And I spoke to my dad this morning, Judge Ivor, and he said just how great and freeing it feels to live a weekend in which Everton don't play. So I guess there's also that to the absence and to the return, and making good use of the great summer vacuum in between. Courage. But to the day's big event, and spoiler alert, Manchester City won the FA Cup, League and Cup double secured. They won 2-1, thanks to 2 goals from that irrepressible genius, Ilkay Gundogan. But let's start at the beginning, at Wembley, where in the entire 151-year history of the FA Cup, we had ourselves a final which pits Manchester against Manchester, United against City. Yes, there's been 189 Manchester derbies, but this was the first to take place in the FA Cup final for that big tchotchke, which not only was like New Order, Oasis and the Smiths coming together to form a super band, but it fleetingly put the fading relevance of the FA Cup itself on pause. A marquee A-list heavyweight final, aka Wout Weghorst last dance. And from the off, it felt like more than a football game. Felt like a battle for Manchester City for world domination, colliding with their crosstown rivals' battle for, well, self-respect. A battle between 2 ball king schemers, Pep Guardiola, who'd actually hired Erik ten Hag back in 2013 to manage Bayern Munich's second team. Now they walked out at Wembley. It's like seeing Kane and Abel. Sadly for United, not Harry Kane. But the stakes for both teams. For United, the stakes are really relevant to roar and have that roar heard and feared again. Carabao Cup, not nothing. But the double would have been more. But to beat City the most, this Manchester City, for so long, a pipsqueak, a Roger Clinton to United's Bill, a crosstown joke who suddenly in the modern period, as we've watched from the United States, Manchester City glowed up and then some, turning into the rip-muscled, oil money-powered gold standard of global football. Manchester United wanted to end their hopes of a treble. Everything. That was it. Mostly for their own self-image, though, and self-confidence. But for City, a different goal. A goal of total supremacy. They want to be our robot overlords in this post-financial fair play charge limbo that they're in. Pep Guardiola's black hat era, a sense he reinforced by rolling out at Wembley, which, from an English perspective, Wembley is tradition. The FA Cup final is a connection to the deepest kind of footballing past, the heritage, the identity of the nation, pomp, fancy occasion. You know, Prince William's there, future kingish material. Pep decided to wear his hoodie. Make that statement. I'm not even going to get dressed up. I rolled out of bed in this hoodie. These are my pajamas. I don't really care. I'm still going to beat you. And United fans, they marched to Wembley with their Julia Roberts is a red banner. All it took was one Pep Guardiola attempt to jokingly bemoan Julia Roberts was a United fan, and now the star of August Osage County has become the face of the team. The one big call for Manchester City, Bernardo Silva, the Champions League semi-final hero, in, out. From the last FA Cup game was Riyad Mahrez. The gent who'd only scored the hat-trick in City's semi-final. City's symbol that their riches overfloweth, and the City fans so confident ahead of this one. They started dancing the Poznan pre-game, and you watched, and you wanted this to be hubris. You wanted this to be Icarus flying too much, too close towards the sun. Ruben Dias yesterday talked about City's treble attempts. He said, if we look too far ahead, it will kill us. And you wanted City to look too far ahead. But my God, 12 seconds in, that's all it took. Or take a long kick forward, headed on by Haaland, then out by Lindelof. But the ball dropped so sweetly for Gundogan. The single player, if you were to put a list together of talent and technical ability and sheer zen of mind, the one player you do not want that ball to drop to, 25 yards out, ball just sat up exquisitely. And this man who, remember, is able to bend his leg in quasi-dislocational fashion to fool Jordan Pickford, he just stepped up and hurled it, lashed it, put his heart, his soul, his mind, his love, his technique, and his apex predatorness, and he just smashed it. De Gea stationary, rooted, as gobsmacked as we all were, watching, like a gent who was just not yet ready to begin to play. But wow, just an exclamation point moment. The greatest trick that Pep Guardiola ever played was convincing us Route 1 didn't exist. 12 seconds, shattering the previous fastest ever goal in FA Cup final history, scored by Louis Saha and Everton in 2009. I think that was 15 seconds. I was there that day. And Everton went on to lose the game, which was the only tiny twig of hope I was clinging on to. But I did imagine dark scenes in Julia Roberts' house. I've got to be honest. Just Jules ripping off a United shirt, trying to find a way to burn it, and thinking about how to get her I love you Phil Jones tattoos lasered off immediately. United rocked. Their big day suddenly, quickly, had been reduced to adopting the position in succession terms, a pain sponge, a highly interchangeable modular part, the kind of goal that made you think in the second, and it was just been bloody 12 of them. What is the point of what we are watching? Why do we tune in? City just seem to be obliterating all comers, melting opponents, melting them down with their white hot heat of intelligence, intensity of play, and collective commitment. See Madrid, see Arsenal, United, shell-shocked in City's white-hot heat. Casemiro trying to calm his teammates down. You watch this, and I kind of realised that if City are found guilty of these FFP charges and are given a points deduction, it will not stop them. It will not. They will come back from any points deduction, this team. They are just that bloody good. If you're listening, Premier League adjudicators, I do want to offer you humbly the suggestion that City should be forced to play an entire season with all of their outfielders having to tie their legs to at least one other outfield player and play like that. But even like that, I mean, they'd still probably destroy all comers. United now had to do something. And they had to do something that this year, in this tournament, no one ever had. City got all the bloody way to the final, beating Chelsea, Arsenal, Bristol City, Burnley, and Sheffield United by an aggregate score of 17-0. Yes, nobody had scored against this Manchester City on their just canter into the final. They become only the second team in history after Everton in 1966 to reach the men's FA Cup final without conceding once. And United had to try and do this in the heat. City allowing them forward, tiring them out, looking to obliterate and punish. Haaland delighted in charging at a terrified United backline as if they were 10 pins and he was some giant Nordic bowling ball. You could just tell You could just feel United quaking, trying to get their legs under them, the doubts kicking in, aware that they have suffered a few implosions this season and just the dread that this could be one of them. City baited them, KDB dribbling for fun at will. But you also realize City were not taking their chances. They could have killed that game off. They did not kill that game off. Pep agonizing on the sideline, just that pepometer. You could tell City had all the style, all the momentum, all the bloody everything, but not the second goal. And it did come to haunt them. The moment, 31 minutes in, lifeline, phone a friend, innocuous really. Jack Grealish jumping up to defend, Aaron Wan-Bissaka on the right. And Greals, I think, had no idea what he was doing here. The ball may as well have been an encyclopedia, the little he knew about it, but it did touch his hand off Bissaka's head. VAR interceded. John Champion in the comm said, a modern handball, aka no one knows what the bloody handball is anymore. That's, by the way, without the bloody, is a direct quote from UEFA President Shefferin when he came on my show. He said that no one knows what handball is, aka VAR doesn't want City to win the FA Cup without conceding a goal. Now, Dale Johnson, who has carved out a role for himself from ESPN, really as the rules are, he understands exactly what's going on when all of us just make crap up. He said, we hate these, but when Jack Grealish's arm goes up to shoulder level and touches the ball, there's only going to be one outcome. Intent to make the body bigger is irrelevant. The arm goes high up to the ball. That's the modern handball rule, and that's a penalty. If the arm essentially is beyond the shoulder level, but it does seem to be in spirit to be against the rules of, physics, and also one of those where professionals say, well, if you actually played the game, irrespective, Bruno stepped up, sat Ortega down with a hop, skippity skip, penalty supreme. Zach Steffen would have saved it. Trademark. I'm contractually obliged to say that still. But wow, a goal which in the balance of play was almost more shocking than City's within 12 seconds. City suddenly seemed almost mortal. Almost, as Shakespeare would say, if you prick us, do we not bleed? Or pretending to be mortal, pretending to bleed. Because for a moment, United were emboldened, and this is not science fiction. Remember, they did actually beat City back in January 2-1, where, again, City had all of the possession, but leaked too late, and United had forward motion vibes. Erik ten Hag, his Champions League qualification secured. They had the Carabao Cup in the trophy cabinet, and let history remember, Varane had an incredible chance on the stroke of half-time to put them in the lead, but because it was Varane and he kind of blasted wildly wide, no one was like, wow, that was a real chance, but it was. And in the opening of the second half, off a well-drilled kick, order restored, dominance asserted. KDB, another day, another assist, yawn. He arced the ball to the edge of the area where who? Gundogan. Unmarked Gundogan volleyed left foot first time. Didn't catch it cleanly, which almost came to his advantage because no one instinctively guessed where it would go. It kind of bobbled through traffic. De Gea, unsighted or slow or old or all three, was comedy late. And man, 150th goal of the season for City, scored by a player who still might leave the club at the end of the season, but remains a peerless big game slayer. Oh, how'd you not pick him up, though, United? How'd you leave him in acres of space the way he finishes? Honestly, it's like leaving a German Robert Horry wide open. City now dominant in midfield. John Stones dropping in with a sense of flourish and masterful flair. Whenever he gets on the ball, you can just sense the joy, the pride, just the being, the true essence of the player that he'd always dreamed he could be when he does so. And Graham Souness said something interesting before the game. He said, I thought long and hard about this, but not a single Caps Man United player would get in City's team. Even Pep Guardiola's substitutes would strengthen Erik ten Hag's first 11. And it's really an important notion because the gap in quality between these two teams felt absolutely gaping. And the one move Ten Hag could make off his bench, he had such limited bloody options, was Eriksen off for Garnacho on 62 minutes. And Garnacho, it was like seeing someone shake up a snow globe. City, yes, continued to make patterns, flowing, possessing, But United, perhaps realising they had, well, everything to lose, attempted to muster the confidence to flurry forward and seize a moment. And it was Garnacho who was really at the heart of everything good, flashing one just past the post, opening up his body with menace. He created anxiety. It was like a piece of grit in a shoe whenever he had chances to whirl near the box. But down the stretch, City, professional, just bled that game out. A desperate United, their only options were Weghorst, that incredibly large Dutch Greg Ostertag, and McTominay. Yeah, there was a little bit of late moment where McTominay was the one with 2 nibbles from point blank range, but no, City win. Without truly, let's be honest, having to break a sweat. They were that superior. A performance perhaps analogous to Pep's outfit, slightly sloppy, but that was its own statement. They march on to next weekend, the Champions League final, the march towards a treble that Manchester United last savoured 25 years ago. Help me, Inter Milan Kenobi. You are our only hope. One more, screamed Erling Haaland at full time. And for United, I guess there was a moral victory in not being utterly humiliated by this City machine, by reaching the end of Ten Hag's first season intact, a Carabao Cup to show for it. Forward progress, certainly. Manchester United are a serious football team now, albeit one ground down by the Europa League, March of Folly, and big picture, mission accomplished. Big picture in terms of returning to the Champions League. But when you ask yourself, where are they in relation to City? Now, I've said this before. I used to live in Washington, D.C., and the local paper, the City paper, used to have an annual edition dedicated solely to the D.C.-New York City rivalry. Which city was winning? Who was doing better? What was cooler? What had more? And then I moved to New York City, and I discovered, to my shock, no one there was talking about or even thought about Washington, D.C. as their rival. This rivalry, which was so momentous inside the district, didn't even exist. And in this analogy, City are New York, United are Washington, D.C. Only one team feels a rivalry. That is where we are. City are barely aware of their once dominant crosstown brothers. This is the 10th season in a row Manchester City have finished above United in the league. And with the United takeover, kind of herky-jerky progressing, slapdash, oddly, this slight uncertainty exists. Will this team have a strategy in place for this summer to back Ten Hag, take the steps forward before next season begins? Because the real pain is, United, yes, have fallen from their peak, but a large part of that fury, the salt in the wound, is the humiliating fact that it's City, that shambolic mob in East Manchester, who are the team that have risen to become global football's treble-chasing gold standard. And in terms of City, treble, 2/3 done. Their season goal, though, was about dominance. It was about supremacy. It was about total control, reflected in the fact that this was Pep's 11th domestic trophy win in England in 6 years. Incredible. GFOP at KSJ49 tweeted, Manchester City is going to be like one of those colleges that broke NCAA rules and will ultimately have to take down all of their banners. We've got to be clear that the 115 charges, and that is a lot of charges brought by the Premier League themselves, they've not been heard yet. And Manchester City deny all of them. And their fans almost revel in glory after glory, booing one organisational body within football after the other, almost using their accusations as motivation in a kind of Duke at their peak Christian Leitner era way. That's the only time I've seen it. Almost relish in the loathing. They head to Istanbul now for the Champions League final. 7 days. We must wait to see if they can culminate this 15-year obsession of Abu Dhabi to win the Champions League and stand undeniably at football's peak, reveling in the fact that football is emotional. What we feel watching always smothers the rational, what we know has happened behind the scenes. And in City's case, yes, they're almost saying, you doubt us because of these charges, but we're going to play with such supremacy, such technique, such borderline collective perfection, such inevitability, that we will maintain this parallel track of dominance and just thrust it up against the rationality of the Chargers. They know the emotional surety of their sheer, awesome, widow-making domination. They know the power of that, a feeling of utter domination. I don't know why, but when I watch them, I do think of some lines from New Order. It's called love, and it's the only thing that's worth living for. It's called love, and it belongs to us. That's what I hear when I see the City fans basking in the sun of their team's glory and domination. Bring on the Champions League final. A couple of quick Premier League notes. Spurs said to be honing in on Celtic boss Ange Postecoglou as the front-runner for their manager job, a gent who himself has been a path from Australian football via Japan to Celtic. He is so loved there as they prepare to play for their own double this afternoon in the Scottish Cup. He's a tactically savvy gent, deeply emotionally intelligent as a man and a coach. What's fascinating to me, American managers currently disrespected in the global game. Australians, they deem fine. You know, maybe it's because we gave the world Ted Lasso and they just gave it the wiggles. Maybe that's why. Talking to managers, Sam Allardyce is now available. He's left the club by mutual consent at Leeds. Most probs, I imagine him having jammed as many post-its as he could fit in his pockets after cleaning out his desk. Brendan Rodgers, now heavily linked to Ellen Road. Let's be honest, uncertainty swirls everywhere. Steven Gerrard, Scott Parker, also linked. It is so bloody sad to witness. Owner Andrea Radrizzani has closed a deal to finish the acquisition of Italian fallen power Sampdoria. And on Thursday, it was revealed that he intends to use Leeds' own stadium, Ellen Road, as security to finance that deal. Just his status, his liquidity status in terms of Leeds remains unknown. The 49ers ownership group are agonising over whether to activate their ability to become majority owners. I talked about this on Wednesday. I'm hearing that all of our American boys could be gone before next season begins. Expect Tyler Adams to make a move somewhere truly tasty. Didn't we American fans, let's admit this, didn't we feel like we almost had it all there at Leeds United? Football, like life, can change in the blink of an eye. So unexpected in the most cruel and punishing of ways. One final note, Jose Mourinho, currently the Roma manager, news that he faces at least a 2-game touchline ban after being charged by UEFA over his behaviour towards the English referee Anthony Taylor after the Europa League final last week. Mourinho's team lost on penalties. I'm sure you've seen the clip. This was an incredible thing to watch. He used multiple languages to berate the referee. It's almost as if you could see his mind being like, I need to make sure each one of the world's major news outlets can use this clip without needing translations. Really, the behavior of a man consciously knowing what was about to occur. This was a man greenlighting his supporters to do anything and everything. No surprise then, but some still small horror as Taylor and his family, this clip was abhorrent, was subsequently targeted by Roma fans at Budapest airport. And I can't believe that Mourinho just gets a 2-game ban here. What he's done, partly drunk on his own renaissance and sudden consequence again. What he's done to make himself the story, but to make himself the story by scapegoating the officials for his defeat. To me, reinforcing his status as football's preeminent arsehole. Look, there was a school of thought before this game that Mourinho was becoming more charming as he was aging. But no, the prime arsehole that's always been Mourinho's driver, still clearly very much there. And this ban needs to be as long or longer than the one that Mitrovic got for pushing a referee for Fulham. Because, you know, what Mourinho has done was actually premeditated. It was thought through. And purposely gave a global green light to every single idiotic father on the sideline of any game anywhere to vent their own disappointment to the match officials, who are human, who have volunteered, normally taking very little pay, if any, to try and devote themselves to the game we love, at a time when there is a true grassroots shortage of officials. And now, thanks to Mourinho, the ones that step forward at every bloody level have a target on their back. No one signs up for that. And make no mistake, this kind of pointless hatred destroys this game we love. Okay, before we get to the toast, let me just say this has been a massive week at Men in Blazers, and the week ahead, good Lord, this Wednesday we release a special Champions League final edition of European Nights with Rory Smith, presented by Paramount Plus, in which we look ahead to Manchester City's impending clash with Inter Milan. Also Wednesday, we'll do it live after the Connoisseurs European competition, the Europa Conference League final, Fiorentina against David Moyes' West Ham. That's special Do It Live, also presented by Paramount Plus, where you can watch both of these games. Do not miss it. Watch them, enjoy them, drink them in. God, I just sounded like Peter Drury. We'll be back on Wednesday. I want to raise this shot of Jägermeister, this bolt of human emotion in a shot glass, to Barcelona, who today won their second ever Women's Champions League title in remarkable fashion. They were 2-0 down at halftime against a vast underdog Wolfsburg. Team who'd scored twice, I think, off 3 shots on goal. Barcelona must have had in the back of their mind that this time last year, same game, the final, they had been blown out in similar shock fashion to Lyon. But in the second half, they summoned their style of football, storming back with 3 goals. At the end, it was Swede Fridolina Rolfö who summoned the winner, slapping home some slot. What a team. What a season. And when it wasn't just Swedes, it wasn't just Spaniards. England had Kira Walsh win her first Champions League. Lucy Bronze became the first English woman to win the competition with 2 different clubs. She'd lifted 3 at Lyon. You gain a sense of why this is going to be the single most competitive World Cup of all time in front of us. A reminder, never clearer, when we saw the magnificent sight of Barcelona's 2-time Ballon d'Or winner, Alexia Putellas, come back from ACL injury minutes before stoppage time. Just a joyous, cathartic sight for an already jubilant Barca crowd. She made a magical late arrival, just in time to lift the trophy over there in Eindhoven in a game that honestly felt like Eindhoven, Istanbul. That's it for today. This time next week, Champions League final, football immortality, asterisk, awaits, and I genuinely can't wait. We'll share it with you every step of the way. And come on, US under-20s in the quarterfinal of the Men's Under-20 World Cup tomorrow against Uruguay, 5 p.m. Eastern Time on FS2. Make us proud. This is Rog saying big love and courage. Subscribe here for more Men in Blazers videos and courage. That's why